Number one mistake millennials are making is not buying a home. David Bach, who's a self-made millionaire, he made the statement that this is the single biggest mistake, that millennials are not prioritizing home ownership. Nicole, is this a total racket or what?
So I feel like we've talked about this topic.
We've talked about it from different angles.
Well, that's what I mean. Multiple times, but in different lights. So I think that millennials were scarred after the fall, like the fall, right? Because they saw their parents bankrupting and friends.
Yeah, most millennials didn't get impacted.
They didn't, but they saw it happening
to
older. So I think that held a lot of them back. I think what they need to realize, though, that right now with like the interest rates the way that they are, I mean, this is really a great time to get in. I think what also was really interesting, because he was talking about this Bach guy was talking about how he purchased some property in California and it like skyrocketed, and then New York,
San Francisco. I mean, that was such a terrible example, I thought, because it's not relatable to anybody.
Well, that's the problem too, is like he obviously got in at the right time, because I'm not so certain that. Yeah. And I don't know their markets well enough, but I mean, a millennial, I don't think is going to be able to buy anything affordable in either one of those areas. But
the majority of millennials act like they want to live in San Francisco, but the majority of them do not. Right. So that's a terrible example that he gave. But his overall thesis about getting ahead, if you pay attention or learn about compounding, your ability to get wealthy, right? Like compounding your investments enhances your ability to get wealthy. If you listen to anybody that's talked about that, then the sooner you buy, the quicker you can get there.
Right.
I pulled a couple things off of Google just because of this CNBC article, thecollegeinvestor.com. Don't know if that's a legitimate source.
Oh, it sounds pretty legitimate. I mean, why not?
I mean, the word college might throw you completely off, but they stated that 90% of the world's millionaires were created investing in real estate. Bigger Pockets, which I can say is a legitimate source, says 90% of millionaires in the U.S. are invested in real estate. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. If you got millions of dollars, you're going to be invested in real estate one way or another. But the quicker you get in, the sooner your money can start compounding over time if you hold that real estate for a long period of time. The average homeowner right now, today, is 38 times wealthier than the renter, right? So that's just facts, that's data. If you might be saying right now, Byron, you said when that whole Gary Vee thing came out not to buy a home. I did, for a certain individual, an individual that's investing in their business, that's a full-fledged entrepreneur, and wants to grow their business first. If you want to grow your business to the max potential, you need to put every penny you possibly can into it. And if you're investing in real estate where you're going to live as opposed to renting it, you're now having to put a big down payment in. And we got into the whole thing. You can go look that video up. That down payment is going to hold your business back. Yeah. But for the far majority of people that just need simple investments, whether they're going to invest in the stock market or just invest in where they live because they're going to be there long term, millennials should start doing this now. The longer you wait, if you wait till you're in your late 30s, right, you have to ride out some real estate cycles, and it's just going to take you a longer amount of time than if you invest in your late 20s or early 30s.
Right. I think what's super important to keep in mind here too is that he's not saying you need to buy this house and then live in it for 30 years. What he's simply stating though is that there's going to eventually be a place that you're going to fall and live for a long time. So if you were to buy in your hometown now, but you're not necessarily staying here, like you can obviously rent it out, but again, and he was saying that you can actually just start making money just by living. Mm-hmm. So again, you don't feel like as a millennial, because I know that they probably get super claustrophobic with the thought of having to stay in one place for 40 years. That's not at all what he's saying. You can buy, obviously still move around, but as long as you have something that you do own, it certainly is an easy way. We've always talked about it. It's like sort of like a forced savings account. It's the only thing that really works for me. And he actually in that article talked about if you were to rent a house for 30 years at $1,500 a month, that's almost, I think he said almost $585,000, and you're still left with nothing. So certainly something to think about for sure.
Yeah, you don't own anything if you rent your whole life. Yeah. That's for sure. The other big thing here is, you've just got to get started, but you don't want to rush into this thing. So I'm saying, yeah, get started early, but don't rush into this where you're going to be in a situation where you're going to leave the area in 2 years and you're not in a position to manage the property if you have to go and rent it, right?
Right.
The person with the most information is going to win. So be prepared before you get into these situations of just going out there and buying something. Start to research the process. But I don't think that's a racket. I think that's right on. I think the only caveat would be when we referenced it last year, if you're an entrepreneur, then you've got a debate on your hands.